And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for like probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say it
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome to Hack City with another FCS Commissioner interview. Tom Wistrcill is our guest at Big Sky Commish on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Go follow the Big Sky on social. Their content is fantastic. I'm sure we're going to talk about the modernization of what they've done in the college football space, getting their engagement up. Tom, great to have you on. And then now our second joining the likes of CAA Commissioner Joe D'Antonio to join the program. Very nice to have you today. How are you doing?
Great to be with you guys, and big shoes to fill with Joey D being on. Yeah, coming after him. Wow. Very impressive.
Joey D is pretty cool, but I think he's still got some of that New York cool to him where I don't think he ever really lets his guard down that much. So
no, that's true. That's true. You won't have any problem with me letting my guard down. It's who I am, and happy to be with you.
Awesome. Quick, I guess for the Big Sky fans, we've got some Idaho fans that are rather loud and a good amount of other Big Sky listeners, but we'll just get local real quick. Tom, would you rather spend a night alone in the Kibbe Dome or sit with no jacket during a Montana game? In the Montana stands.
We're talking November. We're talking about November.
September Montana
cold.
Game, deep in the season.
No.
Well, it's hard to choose, which children you love the most, right? When you look at them. But, I'm an outdoors guy. I'm from, Wisconsin, Minnesota. That area is home for me. So I'm always up for outdoor football. But I will tell you that the Kibbe Dome was rocking last year in the playoffs. So I'm glad Jason's got them rolling again. And FCS football's better when Idaho's good.
I got to ask I know that obviously was a very trying to be a bit of more obnoxious and comedic with that question, but out of all the stadiums that you've gotten to actually like be in the Big Sky, which one do you think has like the most lasting impression? Just game day environment, the fans, whatever it might be. Which one do you think has that really standout impression that you get from being there?
That's a great question. We have different stadiums that stand out for different reasons. I'm going to start, and I'm not going to go like 1, 2, 3 because that would be too hard. Because, let me give you an example. Like Sac State on a beautiful night. When they have a good opponent in there, and that game's on ESPN2, and that place gets sneaky loud in there, and it's a great stadium to be at. We mentioned the Kibbe Dome and how loud that thing can get, and it's just kind of there's other indoor stadiums out there in the country, but that one's really unique, and it's great to see that fan base. It's like just now that they've started winning again, like all of a sudden now they're got to adjust their concessions because there's all these people in the stadium now, stuff like that. Both Montana schools are feature programs in the FCS, tremendous success. You can feel it on game day in both Bozeman and Missoula that something special is going on. I'd say the noise in Wash Grizz in Missoula is pretty special. In fact, I made the comment to some friends of mine that were at the game, the playoff game last year, the semifinal game in North Dakota State at Montana, that it's kind of like it can't get better than that at the FCS level. You have a packed house. You have 2 historical programs playing for the right to go to the national championship game. Game goes to overtime. It's as loud there. Noise. It gets to a point when a stadium's noisy, it could get noisier but it wouldn't matter because you can't hear anything other than the noise. You can't talk to the person next to you. And I've been very fortunate in my career to stand on the sidelines at Penn State, Ohio State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, a number of loud stadiums. It was as loud that day as any stadium I've ever been in.
Tom,
and so we're very fortunate we got great venues like that where the place can really rock.
Tom, you said you can't get much better than that, but I don't think that's going to stop schools and conferences from trying to improve. We've seen the last couple of weeks new moves from the FCS. Missouri State heads up to the CUSA, and then Richmond moves into the Patriot League. Do you know what's causing this unrest for programs to just keep moving around, keep changing scenes, locations? Is it TV deals? Is it NIL money? Is it just general culture of FCS football? What do you think is contributing most to the unrest?
So I think you'd have to, in some ways, take many of the moves kind of individually. The moves to FBS, quite frankly, I think are driven by a few things. And one of them is ego. Could have a president or an AD or a booster who says, we just got to get there. We have to separate ourselves. $5 million right now is a lot of money to be paying to move up to FBS. And those are uncertain waters right now, the future of FBS football. The move within FCS usually is either brought about from a finance perspective, number one, either we're trying to save on travel costs, or there's maybe some equal revenue sharing within a league, that type of stuff. But it also could be competitive. I don't know enough about Richmond and the CAA and their move to the Patriot League, but certainly, the top of the CAA has been pretty darn good for years, and so maybe it's a competitive choice there to go somewhere else. Like I said, I think everybody makes their own choice individually, but typically money is the number one factor, either wanting to save it or just wanting to redirect it to another area. Competitive balance, I don't think is that big a deal. And then geography is the other natural one. But, out east there, so many of those FCS conferences overlap each other. I'm not sure how much savings there is within some of them. So not a great answer to your question there, but I do think that, people make individual decisions for their reasons, and they can be different from school to school.
The past month, we've had a lot of different shifts in how college football could look, particularly up top. There's the potential elimination of walk-ons. There's the House versus NCAA settlement that is potentially going to come through soon. And right now at ACC meetings, you hear about the possibility of North Carolina moving. That's a completely separate conversation, I think, from the focus of FCS football. And I think that the FCS could be in a really good position to succeed better than the G5 because of this weird middle ground that they're sitting in. Just from your perspective as a administrator of one of these conferences, leading one of these conferences, how do you see the future of the FCS? I know that's a large question, but where do you see the FCS landing once the ground is settled a bit after all of this?
It's a great question. And we think about it a lot. We talk about it a lot with our presidents, with our ADs. I think if you look out in the future, and granted, my crystal ball is not a whole lot clearer than anybody else's, but I think it's clear that there's going to be a power to what that number is, 40 schools, who knows what that magic number is. And they're going to pay their players. Eventually, it's going to be a union, collective bargaining agreements, all that's going to happen. What happens below that to the power group that's not in that group, I don't know what happens with them and what's left of the G5. I do like where we're at the FCS level. I think what you have is 128, 130 schools that look a lot alike. Certainly there's power in certain conferences with us and the Valley, but nonetheless, top to bottom, FCS is not near as diverse as FBS. I spent 6 years as a G5 AD and in the MAC, and those schools are so much like the Big Sky schools. Who knows? Someday is there a middle group there made up of the top of FCS and some of the G5? Who knows? That could be where it's going someday. What I do know is that, like I said, there's 128, 130 of us that look so much alike that there's going to be a home for us. There's going to be a place that we can compete against each other and compete for championships And that's what's most meaningful. Moving up to, the G5 and figuring out a way to get to 7 wins and traveling from Montana or Idaho to a bowl game in Alabama to play Old Dominion. Quite frankly, I don't think that interests our schools very much. And our schools are used to playing for a national championship. And anything different than that, I don't think is in our school's best interest. So there's a lot to unpack in all of the different levels. But like I said, I do like where we're at right now.
Tom, I've got a brief scenario for you. All right, so bear with me here.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of the hearings that are going with college athletics. They're going to Congress. If Congress one day conceded to knowing nothing, which they don't, knowing nothing about college athletics, and decided to give one rule or amendment to a rule to each conference commissioner in the country, what are you instating? We got your number one off the board. Big Sky gets to make their rule or take back a rule. What are you choosing?
Wow, that is a wonderful question. Boy, wish you'd give me a little time to prep on that one. What is the one rule that I would implement? Oh, boy. I guess what I would implement is that this is a very unpopular opinion among FBS people. So the NCAA exists, and the 10 FBS conferences have the CFP, and the money is completely separate. And I think that the NCAA and CFP should be one, so that the Power 5 or 4 can manage their business underneath the NCAA umbrella with all money, with all the monies. So that way, they can decide ultimately if they still want to be part of this organization that we're a part of. To me, that's the most divisive factor we have right now in college athletics, is that separation of the two. And I don't blame the FBS. I don't blame them because it's in their best interest to do that. I just think it puts others at a disadvantage who don't have those resources yet are still tied to the NCAA umbrella. So that could be a whole podcast in its own, but to me, that's a fundamental change that would be very unpopular, but it would bind us together, at least for the future, in a more fair and equitable system.
Yeah, I feel like that's where, and nobody really admits it, but I feel like that is where a lot of the confusion, the lack of general direction is, that there's multiple forces that are trying to lead said direction at the FBS level. I know that our focus here is FCS today, and not to go too crazy on these overarching questions, but do you think that college football at the FBS level, they need a commissioner? Do you think that it needs to kind of come to that level in line with what you're saying?
I think if this Power 2 becomes its own separate entity, to me, it sounds inevitable that that's going to happen. And I say that as, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are both friends of mine, and well-respected colleagues and really smart guys and good people. But for them to effectively manage what I call NFL light, that's what I call that group amongst our friends, they're going to have kind of one set of rules and one leader. I think the rest of us could figure it out under the NCAA umbrella, even if there is 2 or 3 divisions within Division I underneath that. But ultimately, yeah, I think we're going to need that. And, it's changed so much. I've been in this business for 30 years. And, the gap between the top and the bottom compared to what it was 10, 15 years ago is so dramatic. We were talking athletic departments with budgets of $250 million. I remember when we were shocked that somebody hit $100 million. That was an unbelievable amount of money. And, the last time I worked at a Power 5 institution was 2009 when I was the senior associate AD at Minnesota. And if I remember correctly, our budget was like $70 million. Well, it's doubled since then. at Minnesota. So they're up to like 140. So that's in 15 years. It went from like 70 to 140 million. So my point is, but yet the bottom of FBS and the top of FCS really hasn't changed that much. We're still much alike. But the top has gotten so far. Of course there's going to be problems. It's just inherent to that big of differences. And my day-to-day, what I do at the Big Sky and what Greg Sankey does at the SEC day-to-day, very different. Now, are there some basic functions that are the same? Working with presidents and ADs, yes. But as far as the day-to-day functions go, going to be very different. And I think we have to realize that. And that might mean some serious change.
Tom, you've been a soldier in the sports world for a long time. What's one thing that got old very quickly about it? And what's one thing that has never gotten old?
Well, what's never gotten old is game day. I love walking into an arena or stadium, or like I was at our conference track meet last week in Bozeman.
It looked warm.
It was kind of funny. The 2 days it snowed, I wasn't there. The 2 days I was there, it was sunny and 70. But so what's never gotten old is and the minute that gets old, then I'm done. And I'll go do something else or retire. But I love game day. I'm the son of coaches. My earliest memories are being at games. And I still get goosebumps when the national anthem's played at any sporting event. And to me, that's the coolest thing ever. So what's gotten old is all we seem to talk about is money. Who's got this money? Where's this money? NIL money here. I don't have money for this. TV rights and more money. We're bringing this team to this conference for more money. And we've sold ourselves to money. And so if every decision's about money, well, then we've really lost our way. And that's really disappointing. And that's something we're kind of proud of here in the Big Sky. We feel like we're the true kind of college athletics because we don't make every decision about money. We don't have enough money to argue and fight over. But that's the part that's just really sad. And it's what's going to tear us apart and going to make it, like I said, NFL light. I can't remember the last time I heard people talk about graduation, like the grad rates at some of these schools, right? I mean, when's the last time?
Dabo did today. Dabo deflected a question and he answered with graduation rates.
Well, good. No,
you're right, though.
Good for him. That's the first time I've heard
outlier.
Someone say that in months.
So you bring up a really good.
That's the problem right there.
Right, you bring up a really good point, Tom. Dan Wetzel on College Football Inquirer made a really good point today on their show, saying that one of the biggest things that's changed recently is a lot of big time athletic directors, administrators seemingly have shifted the fans' focus away from just the product on the field to revenue. And that shouldn't really be important to alumni. It shouldn't really be important to fans. And for anyone that comes out and does the whole, college sports aren't the same, college football is not the same, it's all about money, any fans that complain, I point to and say that the FCS level is still about the love of the game. For anyone that wants to get the older version of the sport and get to watch the expanded playoff and to get 24 teams and to see folks sitting in the freezing stands in Montana and to watch all of that, that's where the excitement is. I'm just glad, and it kind of goes in line with all this, I'm just glad that the national championship was moved for the FCS to a different day. That I think that last playoff, we were starting to build a nice audience. A lot of people were watching these games, and then it just falls flat on its face, not getting to see it, and it being on a Sunday that these people weren't invested enough to tune back in instead of the NFL. But now we get to watch it on a normal day. And I think that there's certainly, again, like we said earlier, there's a lot of room for there to be a good audience for FCS football.
Yeah, we're really excited about the move to Monday night. There were a number of us before who were really pushing for Friday night. We just wanted to get away from the NFL, to your point. And so when ESPN came back to us and said, what do you think about Monday in that slot that was the CFP championship? We were like, absolutely, that's perfect. Fans can still travel on the weekend, make it a great time there in Frisco. And, the fans have been wonderful for years there. So it works out really nice. And then we'll be the only football game on in the world that night, Monday night. So So no, it's perfect for us, and we're really excited about that.
Oh yeah.
Do you like Frisco? I don't mean to cut you off, Sean. Do you think Frisco is where the championship should stay? If there was like somewhere you could pick to put it, maybe where would you pick?
Of the places we've kind of discussed, it's the best for a couple reasons. One is, the central locale is pretty good. Obviously, it's nothing's close to most of our schools, but our fans are used to traveling anyway. They got to fly to pretty much any game, right? The weather, you're always chasing good weather that time of year. And, some days it's going to be better than others in January in Dallas area, but it's still been pretty good. And then they've really embraced it and made it into a really cool event and done a good job from a promotional standpoint, activities for the players to do to make it feel like a championship event. So that's been really good. So there hasn't been anything else that's really kind of matched those three kind of criteria. So in the near future, I think it's a really good home for us.
Tom, last one while we have you. The last 3 years, Joe and I have been going to letting the fans vote on an FCS game that we go to each year. We've been wanting to go to a Brawl of the Wild. There's something out in the Big Sky, but we need them to get the vote. Do you have a recommendation or we'll let you place the first vote of the season of which game we should attend this upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, the Brawl of the Wild is very special. And if you're gonna say, hey, we're coming to one game, it'd be hard not to pick that. It's Ohio State, Michigan, except they happen to be in the same state. It's Alabama, Auburn. Maybe that's a better correlation there. Those people are passionate. And that day, I promise you, they don't know if there is any other games going on in the country. All they know is that's the day of the Brawl, right? The Causeway Classic out with Sac and Davis, because the success those programs have had, is also a really, really good competitive game. That's a lot of fun. So you probably can't go wrong. But I would say if you're traveling out here, start in Montana at the Brawl, and you'll have a great time. You won't have to buy a beer. They'll set you up in the parking lot, everything you need there, and the place will be rocking. So,
right on.
And let me know. I'll meet you there.
Hoping to get some votes for it.
I was just about to say, you gotta, wherever we go, you gotta come meet us.
Happy to do that.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show today, Tom. It is Tom Wistrcill at Big Sky Commish on Twitter. Go give him a follow if you like read. Yeah, if you liked his answers, I thought they were pretty strong. I would have given him a follow if I was a listener. Tom, thanks for making the time. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks.
Cool.